This LOS is describe a security market index. Security market indices were first introduced as a simple measure to reflect the performance of the U.S. stock market. Since then, security market indices have evolved into important multi-purpose tools that help investors track the performance of various security markets, estimate risk, and evaluate the performance of investment managers. They also form the basis for new investment products. So here I just put the definition of an index or indices, and it's an indicator, a sign, or a measure of something. Index definition. A security market index represents a given security market, market segment, or asset class. Most indices are constructed as portfolios of marketable securities. The value of an index is calculated on a regular basis using either the actual or estimated market prices of the individual securities, known as constituent securities, within the index. For each security market index, investors may encounter two versions of the same index, i.e. an index with identical constituent securities and weights, one version based on price return and one version based on total return. As the name suggests, a price return index, also known as a price index, reflects only the prices of the constituent securities within the index. A total return index, in contrast, reflects not only the prices of the constituents securities, but also the reinvestment of all income received since inception. Okay, this slide is outside the CFA program, but I just like to put it in to help people get a better understanding. And what we're looking at here is the MSCI family of indexes for equities. Okay, these are equity indexes. And so we can see that if we start at the very top level, we have the MSCI All Country World Index and Frontier Markets Index. And there's no investment product that I know that's investable that covers this top level. But however, as we move down and we start to split it up a little bit, we can see here on the left-hand side, we've got the MSCI All Country World Index. And what does the All Country World Index include? It's the MSCI World Index plus the MSCI Emerging Market Index, okay? And these are there's many ETFs, exchange traded funds, which are based on these indexes, which makes the index investable, okay? So if we look at the MSCI World Index, even though it says World Index, it's really including the developed markets, okay, which is Canada and Europe and Middle East and the Pacific. And these are these are considered the developed markets. So if we look in the Pacific, we can see Australia, Hong Kong, Japan, New Zealand, and Singapore. Then we move from developed markets, and these is really the typical classification for equity markets. We classify them as developed markets, emerging markets, or frontier markets. These are the three big segments, okay? So as we move from the developed markets into the emerging markets, you can see, again, staying on Asia, for example, China, India, Indonesia, Korea, Malaysia, Philippines, Taiwan, and Thailand. So Taiwan and Thailand are considered to be emerging markets, okay? And then as we move on to the frontier markets, you can see that that includes some markets in the Americas, Europe, and the CIS. So for example, Lithuania now has a stock market since, I guess, sometime in the 1990s. And so that's considered to be a frontier market. Africa, Middle East, many markets in the Middle East are frontier markets. Bahrain, Jordan, Kuwait, Lebanon, Oman, and then of course moving over to Asia as well. You can see Vietnam also started a stock market maybe sometime in the late 1990s, is considered to be a frontier market, okay? They've got some standalone indices here. You have to see that Saudi Arabia is a standalone, and also some fairly recent changes. You can see that the United Arab Emirates and Qatar moved from frontier markets into emerging markets fairly recently, okay? So I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but just want to give an overview. This is the, with regards to equity indices, this is a very structure that you should be familiar with, that the world is cut up into developed markets, emerging markets, frontier markets. And at this level, starting at the MSCI down to the MSCI World Index, emerging markets definitely investable through exchange-traded funds. Another quick slide outside the CFA curriculum, but I like to put it in. And now we're going to look at the S&P Dow Jones indices, family of indices. For the MSCI, I was just showing the equities. So you can see over here, for the equities, you've got US and global, but then those are the categories which I mentioned. You've got the developed, the emerging, and the frontier, okay? Then they get into some sustainability and, Sharia compliant or some thematics. So some other families of indexes which also fall under the equities. Then I like this slide because for MSCI I only showed the equities, but here for S&P you can see that also there's indices for fixed income. There'll be an LOS later on that. And, broken up into composite or investment grade corporates, high yield corporates, money markets, some treasuries, U.S. municipals, collateralized. So many different categories here for fixed income. Now, real assets. So you've got indices for real assets, commodities. The S&P GSCI is a very popular one for commodities. Moving over to some indicators, multi-asset, strategy, and of course they can create some custom indices if for large clients if they wanted to track something. Now, if you go to the MSCI website or S&P, you will get some okay data there in terms of fact sheet, which will give you, perhaps the geographies, etc. But one of the sites that I like to go to is iShares because they have funds, exchange-traded funds, which are meant to replicate the performance of these indexes. So you can see here's the MSCI All-Country World Index, which we know was the world plus the emerging markets. And you can see that this is indeed investable. Here's I got it from the US website. I just put the website address down there. And what I wanted to show you is that when we're looking at the All-Country World Index, it's just important to kind of understand the country weightings. And so you can see the United States makes up over 50% of that index, followed by Japan, UK. Canada is a small piece, or it's always been typically in and around 3%. You can see 3.3% there. And China is definitely growing in terms of its weighting. And so this is just a nice summary of looking at the All-Country World Index, looking at not only the countries, but also what their weightings are. Extra slide as well. This is the iShares MSCI All-Country World Index, but this is just showing the sector breakdowns and the percentage of the fund value. So you can see financials is the most heavily weighted, 21.4%. And so you can see here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I like to show the slide because that relates to the GICS, which is the Global Industry Classification System. There are some different systems, but this is a popular one that you study in the CFA program, the GICS, Global Industry Classification System, and it's made up of 10 industries, okay? Financials, IT, consumer discretionary, industrials, healthcare, consumer staples, energy, materials, telecommunications, and utilities. And so this is the weightings with regards to the MSCI All-Country World Index. So moving down from the All-Country World Index, which was the world plus the emerging markets. So we had the world plus the emerging markets was the All-Country World Index above it. Now we're looking at just the world. So you can see that, which is the developed markets. And you can see again the importance of the US. The weighting is very high at close to 60%. And then again followed by Japan, UK. Okay. Again, these slides are just extra. They're FYI, nice to know, not a need to know for the CFA, but I like to put it in. And so now we're looking at the emerging markets. So remember, we started at the MSCI All-Country World Index. We have the All-Country World Index, and then we have the world here, which is the developed markets, and then we had the emerging markets, okay? So now we're looking here at the emerging markets, and we can see in terms of the weightings, China is the most heavily weighted, followed by South Korea, Taiwan, India, Brazil, South Africa, Russia, Mexico, Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand, and the Philippines. And so a nice thing about the iShares, the reason why I like to show this is that while you can go to the MSCI and S&P websites and get some type of data, because these shares are funds, you have daily drill downs that you can do, and you can see not only all the country weightings, but you can drill down deeper than that and actually see all the securities and their individual weightings. So if you wanted to know what companies in Taiwan are included in that 12%, you can drill down and you can see that. And on the MSCI website, you can't get that granular detail. So that's why I often say, if you want to really understand an index, look at a exchange traded fund that is meant to replicate that index. Go to that site, for example, iShares, because they're very big, and you'll be able to drill down and get a deeper understanding of the geography, the industries, and indeed the individual companies, the performance, etc. And this is my last slide for this LOS. I just want to say, show you that here I've got some data back from 2013, so about 4 years ago. Again, looking at the MSCI emerging markets in terms of the sector weights, but more importantly at the country weights. And you can see China here was 19.81%. Recall, just going back to the previous slide, in case you forgot, you can see China now is much more heavily weighted. And this is as at the 2nd of February 2017. You can see it's now close to 26%. So you can see that in 4 years, the weighting of China is moving from 20% to 26%. So there's no doubt that the markets there are becoming more important in the global frameworks. And that's the last for this LOS. Thank you.